Well, let's bring in James Morrow, host of the US Report on Sky News. James, let's start with the debate. What was your assessment of the candidates' performance? Is there any standout star here, do you think, who's shaping up to be a real contender against Donald Trump for the nomination?
Well, I think we've got to admit the fact that nobody on this stage is likely to be the nominee. But that doesn't mean there weren't a lot of interesting things here that happened on this debate stage. The most interesting thing to me here is that the tactics are playing out in this sort of pro-anti-Trump kind of division within the party. And so you had two players in that. Chris Christie, on the one hand, who is trying to essentially do everything he could to block a Trump nomination. And he was running up hard against Vivek Ramaswamy, the young candidate, the young tech entrepreneur who's saying that we need generational change, who Chris Christie lambasted as being sort of a chat GPT candidate. But Ramaswamy, of course, what he's trying to do is take as much attention away as possible from Ron DeSantis, who's basically still the only serious challenger that exists, I think, in that field for Donald Trump.
Well, as you say, I mean, they got pretty feisty, didn't they? There were some pretty big differences between the candidates' stances when it comes to some major policy issues, from abortion to the war in Ukraine. We like to say here in Australia that the Liberal Party is a broad church, but the Republican Party in the US seems even broader.
Well, I mean, this was one of the things that I find really, really interesting here, is that there's this whole fight within the Republican Party about American foreign policy. It's been a long time since we've had a foreign policy election, but now, of course, with the war in Ukraine, China's threats to Taiwan, everything else, which matters a lot to Australia, by the way, the stance America takes on that. The thing is here is that Vivek Ramaswamy plays a very isolationist line. He comes out and says things about why is money being sent to Ukraine when it's not being sent to the fire victims in Maui and elsewhere. Got a fairly mixed response from the crowd, I have to say. I thought it might have done better. Of course, that's the Trump line on all of these things. Nikki Haley, I thought, was actually the most star performer when it came to foreign policy. And she made a case, I think, for a more sort of involved America. And there does still seem to be, despite Trump's isolationism, a lot of sympathy for that within Republican ranks.